Hey guys, this is Kirob speaking, and in today's little dev update we are going to take a look at what this week of development has brought to the game and the playable demo. Demo update version 4 is upon us, and this week's focus was AI. And yes, that is still an area of the game which is very much lacking in implementation. We do have very strong fundamentals, as I've pointed out before. There are lots of tools for the AI to be making very thoughtful decisions, and very tricky ones too. But that layer above, which actually uses this data that is being output, is not quite present yet. Or, well, to a large extent it wasn't. And we are slowly building on that, and this week of development has been focusing a lot on this. So of course, as always, you can play the demo and its latest version via Steam, and it's of course for free. So what we have added this time, let me give you a quick rundown. We think that despite its simplicity, the AI was performing decently well in classics. That means single-day races. But it completely fell apart in tours, which of course you only have the free CC, the free country challenge at the moment, 7-day race. Because, well, it fell apart there because every stage was raced like a classic. And that means all out, at least for the leaders. And that gives some wild situations. Also, their roles weren't selected correctly for various stages. That is still not fixed, but will be fixed with an upcoming patch. Let me talk about that a little later. After a short prologue of the Tour of Gazmir, we will be right in action. Oh, beautiful second stage, isn't it? Yes, slightly harsh. That will kind of tire out some riders. Alright, what we should be seeing here is that an attack is going very soon. Now let's have a look. They should be going there, yes. So 6 riders in this attack, and now let's see what kind of decision making is going into this now. Well, first of all, you should see that attacks no longer become massive because there's no limitation to how they deem an attack to be viable or not. If basically every escapee goes at the same time, then the peloton will assign that group a much higher threat rating, and that means they're going to be caught unless there's no power in the peloton. So some of the decisions that go into should I join the escapees or not is if someone who's a favorite has joined that group, which is making it much more likely that the peloton is going to catch them, of course. But also the rider's strength, the type of stage it is, and how strong you as a rider are compared to the average strength of the escapee riders. Like, do I have a chance? Then, of course, there are also jersey considerations, and that is not yet implemented, but that would be part of becoming either a normal escapee or an escapee who seeks to grab the red jersey. But yes, so there is quite a bit more decision making underlying this one. And also, oh yes, a big one is how tired is the peloton? On the second stage of the Tour of Gazmir, not so much, especially not after a prologue. But take the third week, and you will see a lot larger escape groups form than previously, because the opportunists are coming out, trying to get into a breakaway, and the peloton is known to not have the power to chase. And of course, then they also consider the time on yellow they have, like the deficit on yellow. One important thing that we've added is that the strength of the escape group versus the peloton is now calculated in a much smarter way. So consider the following. You have a relay of the peloton that is chasing an escape group. Let's say both the relay and the escape group have the same amount of riders in it, 5. And now there is in the escape group there is one really strong rider, and the rest are kind of mediocre. So what the game did before, in the version that you have been playing so far, was that it kind of vector summed the strengths of the individual riders and then compared them to the relay, doing the same thing. That can give a very wrong overall score, because if all the riders in the peloton that are pulling are, let's say, good, but there's one rider up front who is excellent while the rest are mediocre, then if you are just a few nodes away from the finish, let's say less than 100, then really the group strength doesn't matter anymore, because that lone rider would still be able to beat the peloton. You see what I mean? So that has now been solved in the way that the closer you get to the finish, the more the individual strongest rider matters in the calculation, and the peloton knows about that. So it will basically consider the potential of a single rider from the escape group breaking off and just doing a solo run. And that is quite a bit more reliable in all situations compared to how it was calculated before. So it's a continuous merger from pure group strength at long distances to individual rider strength as you get closer to the finish. Well, one thing that we also, of course, have added is... Where is it right now? Where's my little time limit? It's not visible at the moment. Now it will be. There's the time limit. Now the AI is very much aware of where the time limit is and where it's going to go. So if you put your riders into rest mode, they will no longer be disqualified if they have a decent amount of energy. And that is the same for the AI, of course. So it's a lot safer now and better implemented. So they are going to basically maximize the amount of recovery they can get. They're not doing anything super smart yet, as in moving one shorter than their maximum allowed recovery just to keep more recovery going or anything like this. So they're not quite on that level yet. But yeah, getting there. This is already a big step forward. Another general thing with terrain in general is that what you were seeing, especially for rest riders that were in mountain stages, that did have negative to mountain, they were going horribly slow up these climbs, basically being super inefficient about it. What we have done now is that the riders are looking at how unfavorable the terrain is to them, and they will try to get across unfavorable terrain faster than normal, so that they can optimize things a bit more. As in, not waste so many turns just going minimum movement here, or not minimum, but like free movement in here, which would be like 4 minus 2, like 2 each time. That is terrible as a decision. And then instead have some more time and being ahead of the time limit in the downhill sections where they actually can regain some of their energy that they have lost. So overall, that should speed up races a bit and just make them seem more realistic. So, what more do we have here? Yes, AI SKPs now have a bit of a bias as to move in a smoother speed, at a smoother speed. Before you were seeing kind of jumps of these riders. Well, every time there's a hill, of course, you do get jumps, and you want to have those jumps just to maximize efficiency. But when you were riding on flat terrain, they were a little skittish and just going like, oh yeah, we do a +8 move, and now we do a +1, and then we're +7, and then a +5, and so it wasn't a smooth speed, and that meant that calculating distances and time gaps was a little too volatile, and making decisions from the peloton also a little too volatile, and it was hard to follow. So what we have done is the escapees already are calculating a certain target speed they want to go at, which depends on their remaining energy and how long the tour is, the stage is from their point of view there, and how much energy they have left at the moment. So they calculate roughly how much effort they can spend at their current pace to give a decent amount of energy usage. And that meant that, or this does now mean that when they use this number, they will have a certain bias towards moving at that pace or surrounding around that pace. So let's say these escapees plus 14, so they would probably be ending up here somewhere if they make a big move. So now they would be, if this is a plus 7 move, let's say, and it ends up here, it would be, well, this node has the highest bias, then this one gets a bit of a plus, and this one gets a bit of a plus, and then they look at what is the most viable one and pick this one. But the other nodes around are slightly less likely to be picked now. So you don't get, it's slightly smoothened out. I think this will play pretty well. It's a subtle effect, but I think it will play pretty well. Another issue was with dropped riders, where no one would want to do any work whatsoever, which meant that they were moving at a pretty slow pace and quite inefficiently, because only one rider would, or all riders would get slipstream apart from one who would never get slipstream. Doesn't seem quite fair. So now rest riders that have been dropped are going to do relay work as well, so that everyone cycles through, and we are probably going to add to that these relay riders consider, do I have a teammate? Who's the stronger one out of us? And the stronger one does the relaying, while the other one just hangs back and never has to do relaying. I think that's reasonable. There was a little bug in the character sheet, where if you had disqualified riders that dropped behind the time limit and are no longer part of it, they were grabbing basically the yellow jersey in this kind of indication, so you were 20 turns behind the disqualified rider. It was a little confusing. It didn't affect the yellow standings or anything, but just visually very, very confusing. So that's fixed as well. Alright, but let's talk a little bit about what is coming in regards to the tour management AI. So for that, let's switch over to the desktop. Alright, here we are. The tour level AI is going to be based on the calculation of riders' strengths and is trying or attempting to make reasonable decisions within that. So at the start of a tour, the participating riders are all evaluated for their strength in particular archetypal stages. So this is before racing any of the stages. That score calculation is going through and assigning the riders. Let's take the 3cc race for example. This is assigning the riders an overall strength level, and it's evaluating their chances at yellow, green and red, as well as just being an opportunist or escapee. And then it goes through a bit of decision making, that is over here, where it just goes through some logic to determine who is supposed to be a yellow rider, like who has a shot at a top 10 finish in this tour and who doesn't. Or rather, who is a good candidate for the green jersey and who isn't. And thus, up to 4 riders are being picked for different types of jerseys. The remaining riders are going to take helper roles, and then it is going to go through and looks at the list of these strength calculations and picks out the top scores as your target stages. That is where the AI is supposed to become aggressive on these stages. Like that rider that has been picked into this role is going to be switched to aggressive. That is not something that we have as a role just yet. This nuance we don't have yet. But that is, we're building a strong foundation here for proper tour effort management. And of course these strength calculations do take into account recovery. On average, like that high recovery riders will be stronger than the on average than the other riders towards the end of the tour. And of course also based on peloton tiredness, like how likely is an escape group going to get away. This is important for the opportunists. And then the red jersey of course only goes out when there's mountain points to grab and all that stuff. And then basically a quick decision making list for how to assign roles if other jerseys that have been assigned, or other target roles that have been assigned to a level behavior for different riders, if they have target stages or non-target stages, and how this all interacts. All this logic needs to be in to make for some realistic racing, let's say, and especially important for not going all out on all stages and making some reasonable decisions regarding, am I actually capable of performing today as I was meant to, or do I need to take it easy because my current rank is, current effective rank in my target role is lower than was estimated. Then maybe take it down a notch and wait for a better day to strike. So yes, that is overall how it is going to be done. And I think this will be quite powerful. And what we are going to build on top of that is that there will be much more nuanced behavioral sets for these riders. But that can be implemented later. Currently we are going to implement this with the existing behavioral sets of the riders, how they are acting in a stage, and see how much of a benefit this grander thinking already does to the behavior and racing experience in tours. Alright, that should be all for today. We are going to release this part that I've just shown you in the spreadsheet. That is not included in today's patch, not in 4.0, but that will come in the next few days. Alright, hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time.